for you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get our meeting started. We have a quorum. We are missing Peggy. So, let's, we'll call our meeting to order. Can we have a motion for the agenda, approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we have, everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes, correct? Can I, any changes? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 20th meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. I guess our first, well, can we have our guests introduce themselves? Starting from the back.
Sure, Ernest Martinez.
Ernest Martinez, welcome.
Nadine Dumais.
One more time,
Nadine Dumais.
welcome.
Brian Coat.
All right. Our first order of business is to elect a chair, vice chair, co-chair, co-chair. So, can we have a nomination for a co-chair?
Nominate Peggy McWilliams.
There you go.
I think I would say let's pick someone that's here and has a say.
That was going to be the,
That was gonna be the punishment for not attending.
all right.
Could I make a motion, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Could we, put off the election of the co-chair till we all are in attendance? That way it'll,
Motion to table it.
Yep, let's
Yes.
table
I
it.
think that would be a good idea.
Very good. Could we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
All right. So we're able to move forward. Let's go with our next order of business, which is chickens. Has everybody had an opportunity to, well, would you guys like to give us some more info? Go for
First
it.
thing I would like to say is we received no comments from you guys. So we tried to take out what we felt like we heard was controversial to you guys on that and tried to come up with one that just dealt with chicken hens. So Erica is gonna present and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to change it or you want to change it?
You
Okay.
clicker, turn it on.
So,
On the, right there. There you go.
the objective, again, is to allow residents, and we've actually modified from R1 and Ag. We would like it to be R1, R2, and O1, leaving the agricultural district as it is right now. At a further time, we will discuss what was presented at the last time, the animal unit. So we are adding 2 more zoning districts to what we had previously discussed.
And I think that, just to clarify, the reason we looked at that is there was questions as to if you're in an R2 and you have a duplex and you have your own backyard, why can't you have them? Or if you are in an O1 district, but yet it's just being used as a residence, why can't you have them? So that's what we tried to address because we heard that from you guys.
Right.
Okay, so the current problems that we are facing now, not allowing chickens in these zoning districts, is that it's not permitted. It's only being permitted within the agricultural districts. As the code officer, I see numerous homes, parcels, properties with chickens currently. We haven't made them get rid of them, nothing like that, because we would rather them be able to utilize the property as they wish. So, as they are now, they're currently out of compliance. The quantity, we still are at the 5 chicken hens per parcel. And we would like to leave it as that because a lot of residential parcels in these districts aren't like an agricultural parcel, so you're not gonna have as much room. Let's see. So the residents within these districts would still, well, currently they're constructing coops or buying the mini ones, and the issue we have right now is that they're putting them along their property lines against their fence, and the neighbors that don't want chickens are complaining because it's an issue. So, going forward, we would permit those, so they would be required to adhere to the zoning setbacks. And then the last problem would be residents complaining that the neighboring pets are trying to attack or get into their yard to get the chickens. Okay, solutions. Amend the animal provisions. By amending the animal provision in the R1, R2, and O1 district, this will allow residents to be compliant, and again, allow them to utilize their property as needed. The requirements, by amending the provision in this district, this would allow the citizens to adhere, but also be compliant. And the reason we want to put this in the code is so if the city needs to step in, should there be an issue with complaints, smell, neglect, it all would fall under a nuisance. So that's a big reason. Type of requirements we had discussed previously would be no more than 5 chicken hens per parcel, chicken coop enclosure run permitted through community development, must meet zoning setbacks, and then no roosters would be permitted in those 3 districts. When we say chicken coop run, we're not saying keep your chickens in that teeny little house down there. A lot of coops, I'm sure you've seen around town, they have the extended little area to go in. Steven actually found those chicken balls that he wants to get for his yard. Because he has low walls. So it would pertain to a lot of things. It wouldn't just be keeping them cooped up. And then a big thing too is if you're gonna have 5 chicken hens, they're not all gonna fit in like that little triangular one. It's just too small. So that's why we would want it to be permitted in the long run. Permanent or portable. All coops, regardless if they are permanent or portable, will need to go through community development. Per animal control, they say a chicken should have 4 square foot per animal unit. And then free range. Ideally, we're not saying they can't free range in your yard. What we're saying is we just don't want them to be in city right of way or public property where they can be attacked, because then that's another issue for animal control. So if they're maintained in a fencing area in your yard, free range them. Again, with the accessory structure, it just must be permitted. This ensures the structure is stable, safe, and adheres to the setbacks. Animal provisions. So in R1, we had just number 1. And it says no animals other than household pets, cats, dogs, and birds. And provided they are confined to private property and not allowed to enter public property except under hand leash. So we will be adding number 2, and it will say chicken hens are permissible but must be cooped, not free range, meaning they cannot roam outside of the property, cannot exceed 5 in quantity, and cannot reside in the front yard. And we kind of discussed that at the last meeting. And I think that was what we came of it because we didn't receive any comment. R2, same thing. We added the same thing. And the number 2 is exactly the same.
We probably should change number 1 to look exactly like number 1 on that.
Oh, where it says cats, dogs, and just leave it as household pets. Okay.
It may be that
Yeah,
way in
yeah,
this.
it needs to say household pets.
Correct.
Because they can have lizards, snakes, gerbils.
Right, and we'll get to that. So then in the Owen district, animals were not in that at all. So we went ahead and added that to that because if you notice on a land use map, there is a lot of O1s that abut Main Street, but they're houses. So we want those residents to be able to utilize their property as a residential would. And then on that one, it says, Rita, is this the one? Okay. On number 2 of 01, it said chicken hens are permissible when the primary use of the property is for residential use and the resident has their own private or side yard. Back or side yard. That's because, again, some of those are utilized as offices. Additions and changes pertaining to land use outside of animal provisions. In the agricultural land use or section, we added accessory structures. There was not anything under there that pertained to accessory structures. This helps with people who want to put a barn or carport or anything like that. No setbacks or anything like that was changed. This was just added additionally. If someone wanted to come in and get a coop or a barn or a shed. So that was an addition. In the R1 accessory structure, we made a addition to what was already there, which you can see in red. It says chicken coop and kennel run enclosures and meets property setbacks. And then in the R2 district in general, it says this district is to regulate to allow most uses because previously it said adheres to R1 district. So that's the only change in that one. O1 district, same thing, we added to permit most R1 and R2 uses. In those changes to the animal provisions, we did update and add 2 definitions. Household pets, for purposes of this ordinance, household pets, bird, dog, cats, reptiles, and hamsters are allowed for premise providing further that said animals shall not run at large. So we did update that, and then we added livestock for purpose of this ordinance. The following animal, horse, cow, duck, shall obtain for a premise or lot providing further said animals shall not run at large, and further provide that no animals shall be kept near or to the nearest neighboring home. Swine is not permitted. It hasn't been permitted, so we didn't do anything with that. Okay, that's all I have. Comments, changes, and concerns. We would like to make changes today, so we have your feedback. There's what we presented to you today, and then we can go ahead and vote on it and move it to intent.
So it won't be on this next commission meeting, that would be in the first meeting or second meeting.
Go back to where you mentioned no roosters.
In the R1, R2, and O1 district?
Yeah, I think it was one of the first slides.
Oh, that's just when I was talking, yeah.
Yeah, right there, what type of requirements? No roosters would be permitted within these districts?
That would just be your single-family residential, your multifamily residential, and the O1 district. It does not pertain to the agricultural
Yeah.
district.
I'm aware of that, but what I'm saying is if a person has a rooster, I don't feel that it's any different than a barking dog all night long. I think you ought to strike that.
We would still get complaints. That's the only downfall. Like
I
I had
mean,
mentioned before, when you have all 5 of you living next door and Chair Flores doesn't want a chicken and there's 3 roosters around him, that's when we start getting the complaints.
But the thing of it is, it's no different than a barking dog.
And they get issued citations for barking dogs.
Well, then you could issue citations for a rooster crowing and bothering everybody.
But that's why we would just say no roosters in that single-family district.
I don't agree with that because the same way you could also strike no dogs in a residential area if you're, say like Mossman Addition. Those houses are pretty close and stuff like that. You could strike no dogs within this residential area because the four of us live next to each other and I have a dog that barks and they don't want dogs. I feel that
And so
it should be up
with
to
that-
each individual. If he wants a rooster, then it's no different than having a barking dog.
With that though, in the animal code, it doesn't specify that they could be fined for a rooster. So they would have to completely change their code as well to adhere to that.
Then so be it.
Anyone else on the rooster?
I don't see why we care if they have, why do we want them to have a rooster? I mean, I mean, I get it, if it's gonna make everything tough, forget the roosters. I mean, I hate to just be that guy, but it's hard to compare it against dogs too. I mean, I've only lived in Aztec for a couple of years, but everybody's got a dog.
That's the thing, and I don't really think that everybody's gonna go out and get a rooster. I mean,
You'd be surprised.
there's
You would be
you know,
surprised.
I've got a rooster that lives across the way from me, and I've got some individuals that live next to me that complain and gripe about some of the simplest things, and they haven't complained that I'm aware of about the rooster. So,
We get complaints in that area about roosters all the time. I've actually already had to have, 3 people get rid of them on San Isidro, Lover's Lane, and I wanna say Ariba.
well, you've missed
So
one.
so if you're having people get rid of roosters, you're telling them they have to get rid of their rooster under which ordinance?
They're not permitted, you can't have chickens in
And
that
have
ordinance.
chickens, period.
Okay,
So, I mean,
so,
we're not making them get rid of the chickens, we're only making it the noise ordinance, because that is a noise, you know what I mean? So, that's why we want to get this in effect, because so many people have chickens, but it's hard to, okay, you can't have this, you can't have this, you can't have
Right.
this. When COVID hit, eggs were crazy, that's why a majority of people say they got chickens. Great, that's fine. But when you're constantly getting videos emailed or someone calling saying, hey, I don't want this rooster here, I don't care if they have the chickens, I don't want a rooster. What do you do?
But ultimately, it comes down a consensus of you guys.
Yeah,
and I think if the animal code has to change, then it should change. Because I really believe that all of the code should be concurrent with each other.
correct, which
know-
their states, no roosters, right?
So the animal code already
It's
states
not a
that.
household pet. And we're making an exception for the hens for these smaller parcels and these more congested neighborhoods. So we're trying to give and take, but ultimately, I guess it's gonna come down to what you guys want.
Right. So no roosters. How about you, Anna?
I would go with that.
Because I'm going to side with the roosters, so we're going to be in a quandary here.
Uh-oh.
So you have 2 for and 2 against?
Yep.
Peggy didn't show.
And no show Peggy.
Dang it.
Because I mean, there's going to be some folks that,
Ultimately, it's gonna be the commission's determination.
Yeah, I mean, you can make your recommendation, but if the commission pulls it and says, no, we'll say, accept this, not this, that's what it
Right.
is.
Yeah, what we can do is present an ordinance with the option of rooster being in there. And then when the commission goes to vote on the intent to adopt the ordinance, they can amend it to include or exclude the rooster.
and you know, I mean, if anybody has ever bought chicks before,
You don't know what you get.
they tell you this is not a rooster. And then when it grows up, it's a rooster.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Well, if
some people are going to have a hard time getting rid of their chicken because they don't want to get rid of rooster or otherwise. You know,
It's a
And
pet.
and what do you do with
What's
it?
interesting about that is people take chickens and roosters to the animal shelter all the time and they post and they're gone within like hours. It's crazy.
Well, and then how are we going to, and then people that already have coops, they'll get a letter from the city and permit
They
them?
won't get a letter. We'll basically, if we get a complaint, they'll be considered pretty much grandfathered,
Okay.
I guess you could say. If we get a complaint that the coop's on a wall or something like that, then we would have to say, hey, look, this is what the code reads. We're not saying get rid of your chickens, we're just saying, hey, respect your neighbor, get it off the fence.
Okay.
Plus, it doesn't meet the setbacks.
So so the same thing if someone has more than 5.
Right, well, and like we said before, I don't have time to police chickens. We're just trying to make it where people
Can do it
can
legally.
they
Right.
Something
do
you
it
can
right.
act on, right.
And we would hope that they would respect the fact that if someone else doesn't want them, you know, keep it clean. The thing with the portable coops is that we had discussed it. We thought maybe keeping those at least 3 foot from the wall, 2 to 3 foot off their fence line. If they're gonna move them around the yard, great, fine, just don't stick them against that.
Right. And the setback says 5, right? 5 foot?
For an accessory structure, it just depends on the zoning district, or what zone it is,
I think for the most part it's 5.
5 and 3.
5 and 3. So that's the minimum. Any other comments? Any other comments on chickens? Well,
I think that a lot of people will have roosters, but I think it's something that is in place, at least for people, for the city to act on if there's a problem.
I think you're completely right, Ms. Evers. I think that more so it's when we get the complaints. We're not gonna be out there checking if you have a rooster or what kind of chicken you
Right.
have. I mean, if we get a complaint, then we go with what's in code.
Well, that and if people have hens and they're strictly doing it for the eggs,
They won't have a rooster.
they're not gonna have a rooster because they don't wanna
Cattle.
take the time to candle every egg to make sure
Yeah.
that they haven't been fertilized and,
Correct.
you know, and it's a lot easier to go down to the feed store or even mail order, chicks in. So, yeah, anybody that's that has chickens for the eggs they're not gonna have roosters. You know, unless they buy them and just by chance happen to get one by accident.
And being that the feed store's closed now, you're gonna be getting them from the bigger corporations. So you really probably won't know what you're getting.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
do, they guarantee them. You can mail order
Oh, okay.
your chicks in, and they're guaranteed to be hens.
And then on the 4 square foot per chicken, that's where we would, when they come in to get the accessory structure, we'd ask how many do you plan to have? Because those teeny little pre-made coops that are only gonna house 2 chickens, that's not gonna work for 5. So we just wanna make sure they have enough space.
20 square feet for
I don't know if
5.
you guys are good with that too.
Yeah. Any other suggestions? So do we want to have a motion to accept it with the change that we may or may not, we can or cannot keep roosters?
Yeah, so what Ed will do is he'll make those changes. It'll go on the intent agenda in June, and the way it'll be presented in the packet, I believe, will say with or without, and then they'll make that decision
Yeah,
at that time.
What we'll do is, we'll provide them with 2 motions. One will be a motion to accept the changes as is, and then accept the changes, including only chickens, and then the second motion would be to accept it with chickens and roosters.
And the only change we made to A1 were, can I see
We
those
added
changes?
accessory structures.
Just structures.
Which was not in there at all. So this would just allow us to be able to know what's being built. So if they go and make a makeshift barn, it's not gonna blow in the wind, or we just wanna make sure it's stable and adheres to the zoning requirements.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Can we
Do
have
we
a,
need to add that 3-foot setback, or no? For the,
For our A1?
no, for the portable coops? We should be able to just tell them, cause it's already 3 foot.
It's a portable structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good then.
Primary structure, that's the issue.
So, someone to make a motion and someone to second.
I make a motion it would be to send in a packet to the city commission to decide on whether to agree to roosters or no roosters,
And with the new provision.
and with the new additions to each zoning.
I second the
District.
motion. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, we got chickens done. Okay, our new business, we have conditional use permit. So the following hearing is a hearing for all, the following procedure is hearing for all on the agenda today. If you wish to testify, provide comment on the matter at issue, you must register with the city clerk on the land use hearing registration form and be sworn in with staff. The applicant identifies parties, witnesses, interested persons. So has everyone that would like to speak on this, have they signed in? All right. Mr. Martinez, would you please stand and we're going to swear you in?
And Ed and I for staff.
You will, okay. So everybody that's going to speak, where you're standing, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please raise your right hands. Do you,
I do.
you do? Okay. So we can begin. Go ahead.
So our item for today is a conditional use permit. It's identified as CUP 2301. It's brought to us from Anthem Serenity Operations Incorporated. I don't know where she put it. Oh. They do business still as Cope Memorial, but there are new owners, and they are represented today by Mr. Martinez. The building is located at 405 South Main.
Right here.
There we go. I was hitting in the wrong spot. So the zoning for 405 South Main is an O1 office institutional district. As you see on the map, they are surrounded to the north by an O1 property, the south O1. To the east across the highway there is R1, and to the west is O1. This building has been Cope Mortuary for 40 plus years. We're all probably very familiar with it. And so you may wonder, well, what are we doing with this? It's been a mortuary for quite some time. The O1 district does allow, as conditional use allows for mortuaries. So with it being 40 plus years, it basically was grandfathered in. But the issue is it is under new ownership, the Anthem Serenity Operations LLC. So the duration, according to code, chapter 26, section 26-2-56, item 12, duration, every conditional use item is specific to the specified property and property owner. Should the property be sold to a new owner, the conditional use permit automatically becomes void and terminates. Regardless of relationship, a conditional use permit is not transferable from owner to owner. So this is why we do bring it before you today. We were notified that there was a new owner, and so we began the communication with Mr. Martinez. We did send out letters to property owners within 100 feet. We placed the classified ad that we're required to, and the conditional use sign was posted there at Cope. Community Development to date has not received any calls or letters either opposing or supporting this conditional use permit. Anthem Serenity Operations provided verification that there are more than the 30 parking spaces required for the mortuary to meeting the regulations in Chapter 26. They also are aware of the outside lighting requirement that is included in that conditional use for a mortuary there. And they do understand if any changes are made to signage at a later time, that they do plan to continue meeting the requirements. We have already discussed that with Mr. Martinez. So in summary, per the conditions of Chapter 26, conditional use permit, being allowed a mortuary in that zoning, they have met the requirements that we looked through there. And we do put before you today, we recommend that you do move to approve CUP 2301, the request from Anthem Serenity Operations LLC for a conditional use permit to allow a mortuary in the O1 district at 405 South Main with the following conditions. They continue to adhere to the parking requirements set forth in Chapter 26, and they also adhere to the illumination or outside lighting requirements set forth in Chapter 26. And if any signage changes from what is already in place at this time, they will adhere. And that is all I have for you. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for
No.
Mr. Martinez?
Sir. I have nothing to add. Again, it's been since 1977 that it's been established as Aztec Cove Memorial Chapel. So essentially, we're just going through the hoops to remain compliant.
Okay.
I make a motion that we accept the conditional use permit.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Oh, we need a roll call vote, right? You want a roll call vote? Anna? Ms. Evers? Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
I'm in favor as well, so unanimous decision. All right. Thank you very much.
You may stay if you
You
wish,
may.
and then
Maybe we need to make a comment that neither one of us, or that I don't have anything.
We can. We do want to make a notation.
Do we need to, I don't know if we want to do it on the record or off the record, but neither, I don't have anything, any
He's not
ties
related.
to the
Martinez is not
individuals.
related to Martinez?
Oh, okay, yes, I understand.
All right.
So we,
You want to put that, you'll make that notation in the notes for us? Okay. There's not a conflict?
okay.
New business, we got new business done. Updates, East Arterial.
Okay, I'll give you an update on all the projects that are listed.
Okay.
East Astark Arterial, I got word from the engineer for Wilson Company, that's the engineer we hired to oversee the arterial. He has been in discussions with the project manager at NMDOT, and it looks like they're looking at the second week in June to go to PS&E. He couldn't get it any earlier than that because that project director has to get several different people from various different departments at NMDOT to coordinate and get them, and that's about the earliest that all of them can meet and go over it. The PS&E is necessary so that they can do final comments and we can respond to final corrections before we can go to bid.
PS&E meaning,
Planning and, what?
Specs?
Yeah, planning, specs, and engineering.
thank you.
And so that needs to be done, and given that we had 90% review last month, there shouldn't be much more of a change between then and now, 1 month. Usually what you get is you get 90%, and then 6 months later you go to PS&E and there could be some changes, but the engineer is pretty confident that there won't be anything to delay them. And so we're hoping then that if we get it approved in June, that we could probably go out by August or September with for advertising the bid for the East Aztec Arterial. One of the things to note is that the engineer had a similar construction project elsewhere in New Mexico, and the bid was originally designed for an 18-month project. He says they got absolutely no bids. And he learned from those contractors that they all felt that 18 months wasn't long enough. And so with this one, we're looking at probably putting it in at a 24-month project time period. And hopefully then we'll get some bids. Now, if they get done before 24 months, that's great. But if you go 18, it seems like a lot of them are getting very leery on rushing a project. So, but that's the status on the East Aztec Arterial. The North Main extension, we're pretty much done with phase 1. Phase 2 is a number of different projects that have to, that includes the culvert crossing at the Hampton Royal. That's at the very north end of the project, a little bit past the remote parking. I don't know if any of y'all have driven out there to know what it looks like, but you get the remote parking, then you got the trail that crosses Hampton Royal. We're looking with the same engineer to redesign that crossing. Originally, they had it scheduled for two 12-foot box culverts, which meant you had a center piece to the culvert, and we know that that's not going to work because that's what happens, things get hung up there. So we told them, no, we want to design so that there's no middle section and that there's no obstruction and things can just flow on through. SEH, which is the engineer from Durango, has spec'd out something. They're going to talk to a contractor, but they think they can get a prefab one box culvert design for that culvert. So they're looking in that to see what the cost is going to be. That's one aspect. Another aspect is that has been sort of been put on hold is the lift station. We have it all spec'd out as to what it should be. It's just that we don't know what size pump needs to go in there because we don't know what is being developed out there. So we got specifications for the construction of the structure, and we've got we got funding awarded for that, but we don't want to go build it and then turn out that we don't have the right pump size, and so we haven't gone through the process of putting that out to bid or construction until we have a better understanding what the intent of development is going to be out there. Another aspect of that project is most of the political body was not pleased with the ramadas that are that you walk through to get to the plaza area. And so we are currently have redesigned the roofing on that, and myself and several others will see about starting work on that next week. But it might have to go through the summer to replace the roofing on the ramadas. So that's part of phase 2. What else with phase 2? I'm trying to remember.
Is that because they weren't rain-proof, or was there some?
The original, to give you a history about that, the reason they were designed the way they were is originally the concept was going to be having some sort of vines growing up and over the roof assemblage to give it a more rustic appearance and stuff like that. But due to changes in the plantings and vegetation and all that kind of stuff that got planted out then to conserve on water, that vegetation was removed from the thing, so that, but then they didn't change the design or concept of the ramadas.
I see.
And a lot of the commissioners felt, well, we don't have mature trees out there yet, so we don't have much shade, and with the way the trellises are designed and stuff like that, you get no shade. And so they want something that actually provides shade out there
That makes sense.
immediately, rather than waiting for the trees 10, 15 years to be fully grown. So we're going to do a roofing system that's very similar to the pavilions at the other parks. It's going to be 2x4 framing with slatted cedar planks, and then a pro panel roof on top of that, so they'll protect the wood structure.
Okay.
So there'll be a permanent
They're
roof.
installing that French drain as well.
Yes, okay, that was the other thing. There's
Yeah,
two
I was
things
gonna
there.
ask about
The French drain for erosion control on the west side, that's already done. And then the storm piping system, that's on the Tweety Blanset and adjacent to the Just Us Kids property, that's under construction right now. I don't know the time frame of when that will be completed. And then we also have to fill in an old part of that piping that's on the Just Us Kids, because it could potentially be a collapsing situation. So as soon as they're finished constructing there, and then they will also fill in that other old piping that's on Just Us Kids property. So yeah, thanks for reminding me, I forgot about that. That's under construction right now. Reservoir One, all the Phase One consisted of lining the irrigation ditch with Shot Creek. That got all completed, it got inspected, there was a punch down list. They have 30 days to complete that on the punch down list. We got the additional funding for Phase Two, which is the actual reservoir reconstruction itself there. We're waiting on getting the agreements executed for that funding, which with state legislation, we usually get agreements executed about end of July, sometime in August, no later than September. And once those are executed, then we can officially go out to bid. Otherwise, if we spend any money between now and when it gets awarded, it's not reimbursable. So we're waiting on getting the funding agreements executed, which I think will more likely be in August. But we got money from the state, we got money from NMED, New Mexico Environmental Department, and also the Gold King mine. We ended up getting that funding awarded. And so it's going to be a matter of figuring out which ones we want to reimburse from first, depending upon what their expiration and executable agreement says on all three of those funds.
I have a question about two, one more question. You said that the funding for the lift station pump, it's awarded and it's on hold until you have, you know what the use is going to be. I was just wondering how long you're allowed to hold it.
Well, on the funding that we got from the Gold King mine, I believe it was for 3 years. So it's one of those things, we want to hold off the first year or two, and if we don't have any development, then we will go ahead and build the shell of the lift station.
Okay.
It's just we won't purchase the pump to put in there because we won't know what size pump to do.
I
But the
see.
shell itself that's going to hold the pump and where you get the sump pump pulling out from and stuff like that, that won't change despite what size pump you use.
I see.
And
Okay,
so
well, that's good. That
We can
doesn't
build
get
the
over.
shell, but we figured, well, if we build the shell now, then it's going to sit there. It could be a problem with if someone falls in it. We also want to build a structure over it too.
Yeah.
The other thing too, our public works director had thought about is if we get development occurring within the next year or two, it might be one of those things that the development doesn't want it located in front of their property right. And so then we can negotiate then, well, we can put it someplace more secluded to where it's not visible from the public or from the development.
Right, okay.
But ultimately, if we don't get development happening out there within 2 years, we're going to have to spend that money, and it will be just the shell and the infrastructure part of it, the electrical and all that. It's just, we won't purchase the pump.
Okay.
Because the
Thanks.
problem is,
Good
if
to
you
know.
purchase the pump, if you build it now, you purchase the pump now,
Not flexible?
then you go to fire the pump up 3 years from now, and you find out it doesn't work, the warranty on the pump's out.
Oh, yeah, that's another issue.
And so you've then got a
Warranties.
pump that doesn't work, and you wasted all that money on that pump. So we really don't want to be purchasing and installing a pump right now. If we need to do the other part of the infrastructure before the deadline thing, we will.
Okay, thank you.
It's ready and on paper and we're ready to go. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a timing issue.
Yeah, okay.
I guess the Community Development Office, I'll hand over to Jarita on that one.
Before we hand that over, I do have one question on the east arterial.
Uh-huh.
There was a conversation about having a gas line moved.
Yes, and
that moved?
that's underway. But before they could do that, our engineer ended up hiring their subcontractor to come out in May, because that's when it happens. We had 2 plants that were endangered out on the arterial. One is the Brock's cactus. And so they were going to go out there and relocate those plants, and it's easier to do in May because they start blooming, and move those things so that they're not endangered with construction work happening. But everything else that I understand is resolved for the pipeline to be moved. I just don't have a construction start date for that yet. And that's being done by Enterprise.
Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And the cactus has been moved?
It has to be.
I have not heard from an engineer as to how far along their environmental subcontractor is. They were going to start May 5th, I think it was, the first week of May, to go out there, so I don't know where they're at on that.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions before we move to community development? No? Okay.
So basically, we were talking about
you.
the fee schedule, we've talked about that, and my understanding is, as far as I know, we've got ours all in to add, but I think some of the other departments are kind of reviewing.
Do a history. We were going to do the fee changes citywide with all the departments at one time. But then it turns out, because of the utility study and to synchronize it with the fiscal year, the utility rates and the utility fees need to be done immediately so they can start with the new fiscal year. As such, staff decided what we do is we would split the utility fund out, do their ordinance first with their fee changes and the utility rates, and then we would do the general fund, all the other departments, Parks and Rec, Community Development, all those, we would do it as a separate order so that if there was issues with one or the other, we're not preventing one group from moving forward from the other group. So we split those fees out. General fund wise, all the departments are done. It's just a matter of trying to get through the utilities rates and fees first. We'll see how the governing body reacts, because on this next commission, they got four ordinances to work through, 2 for final and 2 for intent, the utilities being one of the intent ones. So I anticipate maybe the last meeting in June or maybe in July after the first fiscal year starts up, that we look at doing the other fees for other departments. But that's the history on the whole fee structure.
And then as far as the hotel study, we have signed an agreement with Pioneer Development Company out of Durango. They have started their preliminary review with Mr. Saavedra gone. His contact is Mr. Blackburn, so that is who he's working directly with. So when he gets more updates, then next meeting I'll update you on that.
Do we have any items from the floor? Did you have any comments, Mr. Cope?
No, sir.
No?
No.
Oh, we got our demo permit for 1708, the trailer that burnt next to Colgan. They'll be removing that in the next few weeks through the county cleanup program. So you'll see some change there.
Oh, good. The neighbors will be happy.
Very. It was going through probate, that was what was taking so long. But, yeah.
Anything else? Can we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our meeting has been adjourned. Thank you very much for your help, folks.